Aloha kakahia kakako. Welcome to our Committee on Water and Land hearing. We are in conference room 430 at the State Capitol. Today is January 30th, 2024, and we are hearing our 9 a.m. agenda. I'm Vice Chair Representative Mahina Poi Poi, and since this is our first meeting, we'll have our members introduce themselves, and we'll start with the Chair.
Good morning, everyone. Linda Ichiyama, State Rep for Salt Lake Moanalua.
Good morning, everybody. Kanani Souza, State Rep for District 43, Makakilo and Kapolei.
Aloha Di Morikawa from Southwest Kauai and Niihau.
Thank you, members. If you're testifying today, we'd appreciate it if you try to keep your testimony to a few minutes, and we may ask you to summarize so we have time for questions and responses, and just to make sure we're able to complete our agenda. We have a pretty full agenda today. If you're testifying by Zoom, please turn on your camera and microphone only during the time you're testifying. And for our YouTube streaming purposes, please don't use copyrighted or trademarked images if you're using a virtual background. And chat on Zoom should only be used for technical assistance. Okay, let's get started with our first measure, HB 1627. Relating to public school land transfer. We have Department of Education on Zoom. Oh, you're here.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kurt Otoguro, Deputy Superintendent, testifying on behalf of our Superintendent Keith Hayashi. Department will stand on its written testimony for in support of HB 1627. We think it's a good opportunity to transfer land to back to the county for good use for the community. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room or outside wishing to testify? Okay. We have 2 additional testimonies in support. And are there members any questions?
Definitely.
Okay, Rep. Morikawa.
Thank you, Kurt. Can you come back up again? Do you know when this tennis court was under the Department of Education?
I don't have the exact date, but I believe it used to belong to the county. And when the act took place for land transfer from counties to the state for DOE, that school land, I believe that's when it happened. And so inadvertently, I believe that part of the TMK was inadvertently also converted in error. And so since that time, I think the school was fine. But speaking with our complex area superintendent, Danny Hamada, he feels very strong that we should transfer it back to the counties for proper use.
When I worked for the county like 40, 50 years ago, it was always the county of Kauai. We always resurfaced it. We always maintained and paid the bills. So when this came up that it was suddenly a state facility, so the county was no longer responsible for maintaining it, that was a big shock. And
Yes.
I think that's the same thing that's happening now in Waimea, because now there's finding that most of the land, or a lot of land, belongs to the county, and it's actually a school campus.
Yes, that's that land transfer opportunity that we need to take place. There's over 130, but it's not as easy as just grabbing the entire TMK, as you know. We have to go school by school to make sure that the properties that we are assuming is rightfully the school,
Right.
and what should be the county or sitting counties should be the counties.
Right, right. So we really need to, we have a lot of work forward, because in
Yes.
order for us, the legislature, to fund state facilities or campus facilities, it's very hard when you suddenly discover that it belongs to the county, and now we cannot fund it 100%, right?
Totally agree. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, members? Okay, we will move on to HB 1918, relating to historic preservation. First testifier, Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Good morning, Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poi Poi, members of the committee. Ryan Kanako-Ole, First Deputy, Department of Land and Natural Resources. The department stands on its testimony in support. The Historic Preservation Tax Credit helps underwrite the cost of rehabilitating historic homes and commercial properties. We believe that extending and raising the cap on the tax credit will allow owners of historic properties to stay in their homes. while at the same time helping commercial property owners rehabilitate and adaptively reuse underutilized commercial property. We're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next testifier, Department of Taxation.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Teresa Zetwick on behalf of the Department of Taxation. We stand on our written testimony, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Next testimony, Tax Foundation of Hawaii. On Zoom.
Hi, good morning. Jade McMillan for Tom Yamachika and Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We've submitted comments on this measure. We will stand on our written comments. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all that are signed up to testify. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. We have one additional testimony in support. We'll move on to HB 1901 relating to historic preservation. First is Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Good morning. Ryan Kanakole, First Deputy DLNR. The department stands on its testimony offering comments. We believe the state should lead by example in the way it handles its historic properties, and this bill may not accomplish that. Using the standards under this bill, projects affecting state-owned buildings, significant state-owned buildings, would be carried out with no review by SHPD, including this very building, the Capitol building. Thank you for hearing our testimony. We're here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Hawaii Realtors. Okay, thank you. NIOP, Hawaii Chapter.
On Zoom.
Oh, on Zoom.
Aloha Chair, Aloha Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poi Poi, members of the committee, Evan Oi on behalf of NIOP Hawaii. I apologize that I'm not able to attend there in person today, but I did want to provide our testimony in opposition to this measure. Unfortunately, the current definition of historic properties as contained within this measure is overly broad and could exacerbate the ongoing permit delay and backlog that many affordable housing projects and critical infrastructure projects are facing throughout the state currently. And so, we would feel more comfortable with the language of HB 2261, which would include and enable properties to be deemed historic if they're on the Hawaii or National Registry of Historic Places or were built prior to statehood day. And I think, the primary concern is that majority of our housing stock and median age homes are kind of entering into the historic, property realm. And, that would mean that over 50% of our housing stock would, if any renovations, changes would be made to those projects or any properties, then that would actually require SHPD review and could exacerbate the backlog. So we would feel that more comfortable with the language in HB 2261. But greatly appreciate the committee's time and will be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our last testifier signed up. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. We also received 2 other testimonies in opposition and 1 in support. Members, any questions? Oh, Chair.
For SHPD, please.
Aloha, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Alan Downer, the Administrator of the State Historic Preservation Division.
Good morning,
Morning.
Mr. Downer. Thank you very much for being here and for your testimony. I noted in your testimony that the state has not yet done a survey of all of its properties. And
Correct.
I think that's the concern, is that because not a complete look has been done at all of the state buildings, there may be some that should be on the historic register but are not. Is that accurate?
That's correct. The state has never funded a comprehensive statewide survey. It's certainly not directed or funded state agencies to survey their potentially historic properties.
So what would be the best way to go about that?
Well, You know, I certainly believe that the state should fund a statewide survey. And, you know, it could start by directing state agencies to start a survey as part of their regular, the regular duties. I have to admit, I don't know what that might cost. But to be clear, it would be a call on the Treasury.
Do you think each state agency should review it for themselves, or should it be centralized, like in DAGs, or,
So, I mean, I'm going to say this, and I don't know this is necessarily 100% true. I think the principal owners of buildings in the state are the Department of Education and DAGs already. And I think that, I mean, I think it could be done either way. I'm not sure I have a strong opinion whether one single agency handling it. I mean, I think in terms of contracting, because presumably it will be done by contractors, it'd probably be easier to handle it with one agency. And I would again, something I can't say for certain, I would guess that DAGS is the principal, owner of buildings.
Okay. And how long do you think it would take to do this kind of survey?
I think it would depend on how much money was appropriated for that purpose. I think between 3 and 5 years would be my guess, assuming there's a decent level of funding.
Okay. Would you be able to maybe come up with a back of the napkin calculation and send it to the committee on what might be a cost to do that kind of survey? Because I agree the state should lead by example, and we should be looking at all of our properties to designate those that are historic and belong on the historic register, either state or federal.
Certainly be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Members, any more questions?
I got a quick question.
Okay, Rep. Hashem.
Isn't there federal funds for to do surveys?
I mean, so yes and no. I mean, we get an annual grant from the Historic Preservation Fund, which is administered by the National Park Service, and that could be used in theory to do a survey. I mean, right now it is almost all, it's almost 100% absorbed by salaries for staff. But I mean, it could be used for that. In terms of other types of funding, there is not. Other federal funds for that purpose.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to HB 1928 relating to historic preservation. First up, DLNR.
Good morning, Ryan Kanakole, Department of Land and Natural Resources. The department stands on its testimony offering comments and are here for any questions.
Thank you. Next, Office of Hawaiian Affairs.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Kamakana Ferreira, the Lead Compliance Specialist with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. We stand on our written testimony in opposition of this measure. SHPD, they don't have a lot of staff. Their staff is dedicated, but they're understaffed and under-resourced, and we believe cutting the review time in half would be an unnecessary burden to them, and it will also necessitate a rule change associated with that. Plus, in our experience of reviewing historic preservation matters, a lot of times it's submittals that are incomplete. That's part of the problem that resets a lot of the clock for review times. So we think this measure is ultimately unnecessary and will be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have NIAP Hawaii.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee again. Justifying in support with some comments on this measure. Pretty consistent with our previous testimony in helping to expedite and make the review process a little bit more efficient in order for housing projects and critical infrastructure projects to continue to move forward. As we're currently experiencing our affordable housing crisis. We feel as though the 45-day timeline is sufficient and would greatly expedite the process, of course. I think this just really will aid in the development of more affordable housing. So we just want to stand on that. And we did recommend a minor amendment to the language in regards to when that 45-day would be triggered. So if you have any questions, I will be available. But thank you again for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next is Sierra Club of Hawaii. On Zoom.
Good. Oh, damn. Okay. Good morning, Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poi Poi, members of the committee, Wayne Tanaka with the Sierra Club of Hawaii. We are in opposition to this measure. We acknowledge that SHPD's, staffing issues has resulted in, review delays that hurts both developers' timelines, as well as, has resulted in the permanent degradation and continued loss of our cultural heritage. And so this bill would basically rob Peter to pay Paul, right? It exacerbates the threats and harms to our EV and to irreplaceable cultural sites, cultural historic sites, in favor of saving a month and a half for applicants. So, we respectfully emphasize that, looking into the SHPD staff issues, the recruitment and turnover challenges, including, pay scales and management practices, I think that would make, that could actually help address the delay issues and help both sides that have been suffering under the current situation. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Keomailani Hanapi Hirata on Zoom.
Aloha aina kako. Mahalo for allowing me to come forward and give some public testimony. For the record, I am testifying as a Keikio Kaina of Molokai, and I'm not testifying as the chair for the Molokai Island Burial Council. I would like to say first and foremost, I oppose this bill 100%. The State Historic Preservation Office is the keeper of our history and culture. And the injustice to say that now we're gonna have they have 45 days to comply. I think everybody knows the SHPD is poorly staffed. They don't have the resources to do the work that they need to do. Molokai is part of Maui Nui. That's 4 islands, and we only have 1 person assigned from the different departments in SHPD to oversee 4 major islands in Hawaii. So due to the staffing shortages and the lengthy process of, doing these, whatever is their policies and procedures in reviewing applications, 45 days is unacceptable. They need to go back to the drawing board. They actually need to staff SHPD properly. They need to have the resources readily available. There should be no reason why SHPD cannot review applications in a timely manner. You cannot do that. If not, what happens is SHPD goes back on their vision and their mission of what they're all about. Even DLNR, you erase who we are as indigenous people to Hawaii and all the other races and ethnic people, everybody who has migrated to Hawaii. When you do not follow through in your kuleana and responsibility. SHPD was created not for development, not for the government's purpose, but just show and tell. They were there and they were created to be the keeper of our history and culture, all of our records. And therefore they have a kuleana to us. So I oppose this bill 100%. Mahalo.
Thank you. That's all we have signed up to testify. We also received 2 additional in support and 2 additional in opposition. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, Chair.
For SHPD? Thank you, Mr. Downer.
Madam Chair.
Reading through your testimony, I think what you're saying is there could be some unintended consequences of this measure, and the way that it's currently drafted, that it would require a department to issue the permit just simply based on SHPD's timeline. Is that correct?
Correct. SHPD does not issue permits. We simply comment on the potential effects of a permitted project, and give that information to the permitting agency. As it's written now, at least as I read it, is if SHPD misses its deadline, that underlying permit is automatically issued. And I think that, so if we miss a deadline here for review of a project that DPP is issuing a permit on, this would require them to issue, the DPP to issue the permit, whether it is compliant with their other permit requirements or not.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And then you also brought up that Hawaii administrative rules have certain deadlines for SHPD review,
Correct.
and that those deadlines, help me understand, those deadlines exceed 45 days?
No,
Do you know?
they are all less than 40. None of them are exceeding 45 days. Some of them are actually shorter than that. I mean, a project review can involve multiple steps. But so each one of those steps, each one of those documents that supports that have to be reviewed in 45 days, in some cases by 30 days. It just depends on the nature of the document, and essentially based on its complexity. The rules give the more complex the document, the longer we have to review it. But in no case are they longer than 45 days. The problem that, with the delay, part of the problem with the delays is that, an agency, again, let's use DPP, not my favorite whipping boy, quite. But if DPP sends somebody to us, DPP can say, look, you had 45 days to review this, you didn't do it, we're moving forward. Most permitting agencies don't do that, but they do have the right. Most of them say, we're going to wait to get SHPD's input. So, it gets very complicated, but, right now, what you're doing in effect is, in some instances, this would increase the review time for documents that are part of the review process. So, I do think on a personal level, I kind of question the need to set in statute something that's already in rule, and frankly, my experience is it's a lot easier to amend a statute than it is to amend a rule. But, yeah.
Okay. I think also a lot of testifiers who have opposed this measure have brought up SHPD's staffing challenges.
Yeah.
Can you please speak to that?
Sure. We have, because the legislature over the last, sort of some deep history here, I was hired 10 years ago. SHPD had 31 positions with 14 vacancies. We now have 56 positions. So the legislature has given us more positions over time, and has, given us enough money so that we can raise the salaries, and that has helped. But we still face some recruiting issues. At this point, I can't say to you, if we filled all those positions, the backlog would go away. We don't know that. When we asked for, 2 years ago, we asked for 15 positions. We're given those. If they're all filled, would that eliminate the backlog? I don't know the answer. That was the basis that I estimated those positions on. But, right now, recruitment is the biggest problem. I've talked to state historic preservation officers in other states west of the Mississippi. Hope that's not me. I apologize. And they all report the same thing, that there are, for example, more jobs than there are archaeologists to fill them. So recruitment is a real issue.
How many vacancies do you currently have?
We have, off the top of my head, I think we have 15 of the 56 positions are vacant.
And are you authorized to hire for all of those 15?
We're still in the process of opening some of those positions. I think we've got 10 positions that we still have to get authorization to open them for recruitment.
Okay. And then I remember last year we had a discussion about civil service exemptions
Right.
for these positions. And I noticed I didn't see a bill for that this year. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that bill got as far, if I remember right, as it crossed over and went as far as Ways and Means, and they did not hear it. The truth of the matter is that we just had other priorities rather than bring it up. And as you may remember, it was more controversial than I expected it to be, although it did pass all the committees until it got to WAM.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that context. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to HB 1529 relating to burial councils. First up, Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Good morning, Ryan Kanako Ole, Department of Land and Natural Resources. We stand on our testimony offering comments. HR Section 26-34A regarding holdovers on boards and commissions already accomplishes the goals of this bill. So we believe the language of the bill is superfluous. Thank you. We're here
Thank
for
you.
questions.
Okay. Keomailani Hirata on Zoom.
Aloha aina kako, Keomailani Hanapi Hirata. Mahalo for allowing me to testify on this bill HB 1529. I am testifying as a Kekeo Kaina Molokai and not the Molokai Island Burial Council Chair. I am in support of HB 1529. Again, Maui Nui is made up of 4 islands. Molokai is one of them. So it's very important that our burial councils or staff are well staffed, that they have a good relationship with the State Historic Preservation Office. As long as building permits, grading permits, grubbing permits, archaeology work permits, anything that is done in the state of Hawaii, we need to have well-staffed burial councils throughout Hawaii on all of our islands. And that has been one challenge. And the challenge is not our people coming forward to apply. The challenge stems from an application that comes from the State Historic Preservation Office. The application that comes from the Hawaii State Boards and Commissions, and then it goes to the State Historic Preservation Office. Again, the vetting process, you need time to do that within SHPD. However, our people who are applying for these positions, sometimes applications get lost on desk within SHPD. It happened time and time again because these people are overworked and it's in a pile somewhere. So seats sit vacant, people drop out, they no longer want to be on it because it takes too long to be approved. Again, the burial councils are super important throughout Hawaii. Who we are and where we come from as the indigenous race to Hawaii is all around us. And it is important that it is our tutus and kupunas and their iwi that has built the foundation that everybody in Hawaii gets to live on. So we have an obligation, and actually it's on kuleana. It's a kuleana to malama our tutus and kupunas that have come before us, and to make sure that their iwis are never disturbed. So therefore, I support this bill. Mahalo. Aloha.
Thank you. That's all signed up to testify. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions?
I have a question
Okay.
for Ryan. Thank you. Can you just explain, you said that this is basically a redundant measure. Can you explain what the language says
Certainly.
under the law?
So current law under Chapter 90, not 91, Chapter 2634. So the island burial councils are boards and commissions where that section applies to. So Section 26-34A expressly authorizes members to serve as holdover members until their successor is appointed and qualified, unless they have reached the end of their second term, which I believe is what this bill tries to accomplish. So it's a redundant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have questions as well, so you can stay. Okay, so I think maybe there might be some confusion as to what the intent of this bill is. So I'll start with questions. On the SHPD website, it says no council member may serve more than a maximum of 8 consecutive years. HRS 2634, like you said, says any member of a board or commission whose term has expired and who is not disqualified for membership under subsection A may continue in office as a holdover member until a successor is nominated and appointed, provided that a holdover member shall not hold office beyond the end of the second regular legislative session following the expiration of the member's term in office. Mm-hmm. The issue we're running into with Molokai Burial Council is that successors are not being nominated and appointed prior to them reaching the limit of having to be removed. So, I mean, if that didn't cut them out, we would still have an active burial council. So I just wanted to point that out. We have 1 burial council member now, and 2 recently, I believe, met the limit and were termed out. and we're not allowed to remain as holdover. So what this bill tries to do is to compensate for that time, to allow for us to recruit or appoint, and to not let that part of the process affect the functionality, because right now it's dysfunctional. So my questions, I wanted to know, in the past 8 years, how many of those years was the council actually functional?
I will defer to
Okay.
Shipti on that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Madam Vice Chair, it's a very good question, and I'll have to get you the details. But the burial councils often, well, not all of them, but certainly Molokai doesn't always have a quorum. And to be clear, members are appointed by the governor. The governor may let us know he's considering members, but we don't vet them. And we encourage people to apply. But the process of application and vetting is done in the governor's office of boards and commissions. But yes, I mean, the reality is that some boards don't have a quorum or haven't had a quorum, but to give you, I'll have to come back to you with dates.
Okay, thank you. So December 1st, OHA, if I'm not mistaken, is able to submit a list of recommendations. Is it about 15 days after that that the department is allowed to submit a list as well?
We, at least in the time I've been here, we have not submitted a list of nominees.
But you are able to?
Yeah, we have not done that, however. I mean, in part because, I mean, it's the governor's process. The governor is adamant, not just Governor Green, but Governor Ige before him was not here long enough when Abercrombie was governor to know for sure what his position was. But the last two governors are adamant. You must get, you can only apply through their website. So while I do think it's valuable that, people can let OHA know that at the end of the day, if they don't also fill out an application on the governor's website, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so maybe that's part of the process that needs to be fixed as well. Are you aware of any appointments, or maybe that's not the right question to ask, but are you aware of whether or not we may can expect to fill our burial council member seats on Molokai and restore the functionality anytime soon?
Yeah, I really can't answer
Okay,
that. I mean,
okay.
the question really comes down to who has applied to the, through the governor's website. And, until the governor has completed their internal review and asks us, and they don't always ask, we have no idea who has actually formally applied. We do get emails from people saying, hey, I'm interested.
Okay.
And we do have OHA's list, but who
Yeah.
actually officially applies is another matter.
Well, okay. I would encourage the department to be more proactive about that, because you are allowed to make recommendations. And for Molokai Burial Council, I doubt we have a very long list of applicants. Okay, so yeah, I mean, without the functioning council, it's really hard to do business. You can't do business. And we have iwi kupuna being exposed on our coastlines from sea level rise more frequently. And if the burial council can't convene to determine the treatment plan for those, what happens? And so this is, I guess that's not a question. That's just the comment, but thank you.
All right.
Any more questions?
I just have one more question for Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. I just want to know the bill as it's written. I appreciate the sentiment of this bill very much, because it appears that, legislation sometimes has to combat the slow government processes that we experience, whether it's at the executive level or whatnot. But do you think the bill as written, there's a vagueness issue because it doesn't create a time frame of which the holdover member can remain a holdover member, because in theory that holdover member can take up another term, basically, right? Can you just provide some?
That's a legal question that I hemmed that hat when I came over to DLNR.
I know it's hard not to see you as the as the AG.
Yeah, sorry about that. There may be, but I think if this bill were to pass, I mean, you may have to strike the sections notwithstanding 226-34B, just to allow 26-34 to, in case if there's a conflict, that 26-34 would override. That's my non-legal answer.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. And that's all the testimony we received. We'll move on to HB 1544 relating to state water code penalties.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Alexa Daike, Law Fellow for the Commission on Water Resource Management. I apologize, Acting Deputy Uyeno is in our commission meeting right now, so I'm here to testify on his behalf. The department is in strong support of this measure, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Next, we have County of Hawaii Department of Water Supply. Oh, no, sorry. We have Board of Water Supply.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Erwin Kawata with the Board of Water Supply. We stand on our written testimony offering comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Sierra Club of Hawaii.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Wayne Snako, Sierra Club of Hawaii. We'll stand on our written testimony in support. Just wanted to emphasize that this bill does explicitly require that fines are based on the consideration of a number of factors, including the degree of culpability and, if there's any profit motive for violations. And so, I don't think the concerns that were expressed about this measure last year regarding automatic fines that are going to somehow penalize, everyday water consumers. I don't think those concerns are. I don't think we need to worry about those concerns. They don't seem to be very founded based on the language of the measure. With that, we are in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have signed up. Anybody else wishing to testify? Okay, we also received 2 additional in comments and 2 additional in support. Members, any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to HB 1900 relating to hydrologic data collection. We have Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Okay. Good morning, Ryan Kanakole, DLNR. The department stands on its written testimony offered in support of this bill, so long as there are no adverse impacts to priorities indicated in the executive fiscal year ending 2025 supplemental budget. We're here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all we have signed up to testify. Anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? Okay, we will move on to HB 1781 relating to Hawaii Community Development Authority. We have HCDA on Zoom.
Not present on Zoom.
Okay, not present on Zoom. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, we have 1 additional comments, 1 additional support, and there's no one to ask questions of, so we'll move on to HB 2724. Oh.
HCDA?
Oh, okay. Come on up.
Stand on your testimony?
Yes, we stand on our testimony in support. And then we also have some technical suggestions for the bill. And they're laid out in our testimony. Just wanted to make one correction for the second technical change. This is on line 9, page 9, lines 10 to 11. Just wanted to read for each position specified in subsection B. So my testimony was written a little bit incorrectly. So it should say for each position specified in subsection. Just a for clarity purposes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, members? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to 1781. 27, HB 2724, relating to Hawaii Community Development Association, Hawaii Community Development Authority. We have DLNR.
Good morning, Ryan Kanakaole, Department of Land and Natural Resources. We stand on our testimony offering comments, noting that the proposed Kona Community Development District includes Honokohau Small Boat Harbor, which falls under the jurisdiction of our Division of Boating and Oceanic Recreation. We also would like to note that this bill is not clear, and this is not in our testimony, I apologize, whether it's not clear whether the revenues from that are derived from the parcels under DOBOR's jurisdiction will be absorbed by HCDA. Thank you. We're here for any questions.
Thank you. HCDA.
Thank you, members, Chair and Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Craig Nakamoto, Executive Director of Hawaii Community Development Authority. We stand on our written testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have signed up to testify. Or is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, we received one additional comments, one opposed. Okay, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to HB 1902, relating to emergency management. We have Hawaii Emergency Management Agency.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. James Barros, Administrator for Haima. We stand in support of our written testimony that we submitted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hawaii Realtors.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Lindsay Garcia from the Hawaii Realtors. We believe that this measure is good to provide transparency for both businesses as well as consumers, and we would like to thank the Chair for championing this measure over the years. We humbly request that you please support this bill and pass as is. Thank you.
Thank you. Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Not present. Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, we have one testimony with comments, one additional testimony in support. Members, any questions? Oh, no, wait. Yeah, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to HB 1835, relating to distribution management. Haima.
Morning. We stand in support of that our written testimony and look forward to the formulation of this group. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all that we have signed up. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, we received 9 additional testimonies in support. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to HB 1930, relating to the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. Haima.
We stand in support and appreciate the Chair putting this bill forward. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have signed up. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, we received 3 additional testimonies in support. And members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to HB 2611 relating to administrative fees. We have Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Good morning, Ryan Kanakwale, Department of Land and Natural Resources. The department stands on its testimony and strong support. The proposed transaction fee for land court transactions would be welcome. It would help fund continued improvements at the Bureau of Conveyance. We're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have NIAP Hawaii. Present. Okay, not present. Those are the only testimonies we received. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, any questions? Okay, Chair.
Question for DLNR, please. Oh, no. So there were some concerns in the testimony about the exemption from Chapter 91 rulemaking for this fee. It kind of sets up a parallel separate process in the Board of Land and Natural Resources. Can you explain why that is, or is that necessary? Why wouldn't we use Chapter 91 rulemaking?
Sorry. Thanks, Les.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair. Les Kobata, I'm the Registrar for the Bureau of Conveyance. We originally intended for all of our rulemaking, including fees, to be handled by the board. It was more a matter of expediency for us. However, our transaction fee has helped us there, especially in our funding. So I know that the bill might have a disparity between HRS 91 and this particular approval of transaction fees, which doesn't fall under rulemaking. However, in Act 100, it required us to address this transaction fee in some way through legislation so that the, I guess, temporary nature of Act 100 could be sunset. So right now, the primary focus is on our transaction fee. Right now, there's a $5 fee that is collected on the regular system side of the recordings. And because of, I guess, unintended interpretation of the bill, land court was left out. I can't explain why, but it is that is what occurred. So what we're trying to do now is to level set the fees and incur the, at least be able to assess the $5 on the land court side, so both systems of recording are handled equally, and also to be able to continue funding the work that we're doing that was intended by Act 100.
So for the regular system, is a $5 fee set by admin rule or by the board?
It is currently set under Act 100. It's not set by rule, or it was set by that legislation, but land court was left out. And so what we're trying to do is correct that situation and make sure that the $5 fee gets assessed on both sides. And what we're proposing in this legislation is that the board would then be able to oversee any hearings and approvals of changes in those fees.
So the process that you're proposing here is that the BLNR would be able to adjust fees for both land court and regular system.
In specifically for this transaction fee.
Specifically for the transaction fee.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to impose additional fees,
We would go through the normal.
you would go through normal Chapter 91
Chapter
rulemaking.
91, that's correct.
So why is this different?
This one is, what should I say? Through Act 100, there was a very specific purpose for this fee. It wasn't anything, if you will, to do with the cost of recording and running the office. This was specifically targeted at the kind of improvements that were recognized back in 2009. And they're ongoing right now. We've made some progress in that area, especially in the area of digitization, and also being able to automate, I would say, 75% of the work that we're doing, back office work that helps our staff. And especially right now, and you've heard several people testify to that effect, we're having so much of an issue recruiting and bringing people in that continuing our automation becomes a really key step in making sure that we can continue the work that we're doing.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to HB 1922 relating to wildlife, Department of Land and Natural Resources. Yep.
Good morning. DLNR stands on its testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Roar. Angela Melody Young. Okay, we'll move on. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. We received one testimony in opposition, one additional testimony in support. Members, any questions?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead. And can you please state your name for the record?
Clayton Kubo, Waimea, Kauai, 1922. Please support.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, any questions? Okay, we will move on to HB 2473 relating to conservation mitigation programs. We have Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Good morning, Ryan Kanakawale, Department of Land and Natural Resources. We stand on our testimony in support with amendments. We recommended striking language at page 4, lines 16 through 17 to avoid conflicts with existing law for habitat conservation plans. We also recommend amendments to the bill to require the Endangered Species Recovery Committee to be consulted when establishing and reviewing conservation mitigation banks and conservation in lieu of fee programs. Those amendments are in our written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Okay, Tax Foundation of Hawaii. Zoom? Okay. On Zoom.
Good morning. Hi, good morning. Jay McMillan on behalf of Tom Yamachika and the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We will stand on our written comments submitted on the measure.
Thank you. Hawaii Realtors. Okay, thank you. That's all we have signed up to testify. Is anyone else wishing to testify? Okay. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. Earth Justice on Zoom. Okay, not present. Okay, members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to HB 15.
Oh, sorry, quick question.
Oh no, I'm on the wrong one.
2473?
Yeah, 2473. Members, any questions?
Vice Chair,
Sorry.
question for DLNR. So your proposed amendments in your testimony. Very good.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning. So just to clarify your testimony, you're wanting to take out for prospective damages to, and you're deleting threatened, endangered candidate or proposed, and this is for who can do the conservation
Correct.
mitigation
Yeah.
or conservation bank or conservation in lieu fee mitigation. So you're only doing it for section 1 prospective damages, but you're not doing it for past damages or as an off-site mitigation?
Yeah, we want to make sure that it doesn't conflict with existing laws for habitat conservation plans. So right now we have under Chapter 195D, applicants for an incidental take license are also required to get a habitat conservation plan for impacts to threatened, endangered, candidate, and proposed species. So those are often prospective impacts. And so we want to make sure that with this the legislation that mitigation projects can't bypass the HCP process, and this would only affect projects that would have prospective damages to indigenous species.
And so if it's past damages or an off-site mitigation, then they wouldn't have to have a habitat conservation plan.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, if they got an incidental take license, they would have to have the habitat conservation plan. So if they don't get an incidental take license, then they wouldn't have to get a habitat conservation plan, and we could use this law to ensure that persons or entities that have past damages to the environment would have to conduct mitigation.
All
projects.
right, can you say that one more time?
I know, it's kind of confusing. So right now, if it's a voluntary process under Chapter 195D, if an applicant thinks that they may have incidental take of a threatened, endangered candidate or proposed, or what was the other one? Sorry. Candidate or proposed species, they would apply to the Department of Land and Natural Resources for an incidental take license, and that would be reviewed by the board. And if they would also have to apply and go through the process of getting a habitat conservation plan and work with the Division of Forestry and Wildlife to get that habitat conservation plan. So right now, we're seeing that mostly for prospective damages to the environment. But if an applicant has had take in the past and they see they may have more take in the future, they could come to us again and say, hey, we want to get an ITL, incidental take license and a habitat conservation plan, and go through that whole process. But if they choose not to, under this bill, we could require through the board for an applicant that has take of threatened or endangered species to conduct mitigation for that take. And we also are applying it to indigenous species. So if there's damage to, say, native Ohio forest or something like that, we could potentially take that to our board and say, hey, we want to have this entity conduct mitigation because they've conducted these damages. Does that make sense?
Okay. The way that you written your amendment, though, it's for prospective damages to indigenous species.
Yeah.
But an indigenous species, unfortunately, our indigenous species can also be threatened or endangered, candidate or proposed.
Yeah, I guess because the law, Chapter 195D in the definition section, because it singles out threatened and endangered by definition, we are interpreting the indigenous species part to just apply to species that are not threatened or endangered or proposed or candidate, because those are also defined.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Sorry, one last
I know
question.
it's a bit confusing, but.
So let's say someone does this conservation banking or conservation in lieu fee mitigation, right? So essentially they're paying for someone else to do the conservation work because of their prospective take or past take, right?
Yeah.
But what if that project that they're paying for doesn't work out for whatever reasons, natural disaster, act of God, that project fails?
Yeah. What
happens then?
Well, all conservation banks and all conservation in lieu fee programs would be established under a contract. So our thinking is these would be established in perpetuity, and they'd be established under a conservation easement or some kind of deed restrictions or something for the property, so that's maintained in perpetuity. And then to establish the bank itself, it would be established under a contract, under terms of the contract, that would ensure that they could, that there would be safeguards against anything bad happening to the bank to make it fail. That's our intent in this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, I have a question. Is there any concern that this bill would result in applicants or parties increasing their take limits, and it would be easier for them to get additional takes because they are able to potentially offset it in another way?
We don't have that concern because this is supposed to be another tool for mitigation. So we actually see this as a beneficial tool. We could increase the likelihood of mitigation projects, like their success, by increasing, by enabling projects to be pooled into certain areas, by enabling larger projects to happen. Right now, each applicant has to do little individual projects in different areas, and it just, We do a check through the Endangered Species Recovery Committee, a biological check, and then and also our staff, our biologists too. So we do have that check, but we hope that there's a greater success if it's a larger area, and we don't think people would be able to take advantage of it because of all the kind of the checks in place under this law and under existing Chapter 195D provisions.
Okay. I'm especially concerned for species that we don't understand enough, like the Ope'apea bat. And, that was just my concern was if someone has a taking applicant for, say, 20, taking permit for 20 and they end up killing 200, taking 200 or so, and then, how is that offset, and how is just ensuring that this bill doesn't enable like those kinds of activities unintentionally?
Every HCP is required to have so you're allowed to take a certain number based on the biological assessment. We also work in conjunction with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service on a lot of these projects. So there's that check too.
Okay.
But every bill allows a certain number of species to be taken in, and an incidental take license, or every incidental take license allows a certain number of species to be taken. And then there's different tiers that require different management actions to also take place that are outlined in the Habitat Conservation Plan. So really the Habitat Conservation Plan is more of like the safeguard here, and this is these conservation banks and conservation and live-free programs are another tool for mitigation to take place. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to HB 1592 relating to Land Conservation Fund. Oh, Earth Justice on Zoom.
Apologies for the delay. David Henkin with Earth Justice. Appreciate this opportunity to testify. And we don't have any problem in concept, as our written testimony reflects, with setting up any types of conservation banks or that type of approach. But the devil is in the details. And when we're talking about protecting our critically endangered plants and animals, we need to make sure that we make policy the right way. And so we flagged in our testimony concerns that we have about the bill and its ability to ensure that we're only going to be doing measures for the protection of endangered plants and animals the right way. And so, rather than try and fiddle with the bill during session when people's attentions are divided, setting up an expert working group to try and think through the difficult issues that are presented, the interrelations. I'm sorry that I missed the previous testimony, but I did see the written testimony from the DLNR, and the fix that they're proposing to their own bill in progress here would not really address the issue of whether we're taking the right measures for endangered species. And so we would urge the committee to move this to a working group that can do the deliberation between sessions and take this up next year. There's really no rush to do it this year. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. Now we will move on to HB 1592 relating to Land Conservation Fund. DLNR.
Good morning, Ryan Kanakole, DLNR. We stand on our written testimony in support of the bill so long as there are no adverse impacts to priorities indicated in the executive's supplemental budget. We also offered an amendment to have the bill take effect immediately upon enactment and approval. The boost in revenue to the Legacy Land Conservation Fund will be welcome in enhancing our ability to protect resources and preserve lands for conservation. Thank you.
Thank you. Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
Good morning, Katia Balaciano with the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. We stand on our testimony in support of this measure.
Thank you. Tax Foundation of Hawaii.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Jane McMillan on behalf of Tom Yamachika for the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We will stand on our written comments submitted on the measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii Realtors. Okay, thank you. That is all we have signed up to testify. Does anyone else wish to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? Okay. No questions. We'll move on to HB 1581 relating to wildfire prevention. DLNR.
Good morning, Ryan Kanaka-Ole. DLNR. We stand on our written testimony, strongly supporting the bill, so long as there are no adverse impacts to the priorities indicated in the executive supplemental budget. We're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. University of Hawaii.
Morning, Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poi, members of the committee. Don Drake, Interim Director of Lion Arboretum, University of Hawaii. University stands on its written testimony in support of this bill to develop a program for a native plant nursery and seed bank within the Department of Land and Natural Resources. And we're here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, that's all we have signed up to testify. Does anyone else wish to testify? Okay, members, questions? Okay, Chair.
For Lion Arboretum, Director Drake. Thank you very much for
Chair.
your testimony and for being here. I just want to clarify in your testimony, you mentioned that the University of Hawaii through Lion Arboretum has received a grant to work on, I think, what this measure is trying to accomplish: seed collection and storage, seed and plant production and restoration. But I noticed in your testimony it's limited to Department of Interior lands. Is that correct?
Yes, this is something which I'm not sure exactly how far the development has gone. There was some funding made available through the National Park Service last year to develop seed banks for restoration of lands and national parks. And we are working together with Fish and Wildlife Service at the moment to play a role in that. But the federal funds at the moment are for things that are on federal lands.
Okay.
As far as I know. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
And then one quick follow-up question for DLNR. Do you know how much would be needed for this kind of a project?
Aloha, Maikako, Michael Walker. I'm the statewide fire protection forester for DLNR, Forestry and Wildlife. Are you asking total number of seeds or an appropriation?
Oh, sorry, appropriation amount. Or what would be the right amount to start this program? Or
Yeah, we have to work on that a little bit more. We've got estimates based on seed coverage per restoration of those areas, and it's around 6,000 to 8,000 seeds per acre. So many of these areas, depending on whether or not they've been previously burned or they're fenced, et cetera, require different amounts. But we see it as a significant reduction in cost compared to planting seedlings. There's some studies out there that show that seed scatter, when effective, is much more cost effective than planting trees.
okay, if you could provide that to the committee on an estimate of what would be the right appropriation amount for FY25, you know, what's needed, but also what you think you can spend.
Okay, can do. Thank you
very much.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to HB 1841 relating to the Department of Land and Natural Resources. DLNR.
DLNR stands on its testimony and support.
Thank you. State Fire Council.
Good morning, Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poi, members of the committee. Gary Lum, on behalf of the State Fire Council, we stand on our written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Nahelani Parsons for care for Aina. No. Okay. Thank you. Kyomailani Hirata on Zoom.
Aloha aina kako, Kyomailani Kanaki Hirata calling in from the island of Molokai. Mahalo for allowing me to testify on this. I am testifying as a Kiko Kaina Molokai. So I am testifying in support of this bill 1841. I want to mahalo the interim working group, 6 people who made up the working group task force, I guess, for their community engagement that they did. I support this bill. I had one small thing to share, and it's more of a comment. I think in the funding of positions, I believe, especially since this is going to go under the Division of Forestry and Wildlife, under DLNR, there should be a funding in there for some type of a cultural practitioner to be there, or something along that line as far as a position. That should be a paid position that can help assist all of these other people who will be a part of this. These other, let's see, how many positions? 22 full-time positions to help in that area of culture and history for all the islands. Okay, mahalo.
Thank you. Okay, that's all we have signed up. Is anybody else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to HB 2174 relating to search and rescue, Department of Law Enforcement. Todd Yukutake on Zoom.
Hello. Aloha Water and Land Chair and Committee, Todd Yukutake. I provide comments for HB 2174. I'm open to the state charging a fee over the other option of creating a requirement for people to reimburse for a search and rescue. But it depends on the amount you're going to charge. I guess it's left blank right now. I'm okay with like maybe $100 fee or so. I can understand that. But if you make the fee too high, like $1,000 or more, I think it's going to discourage lost hikers from calling for help or delaying a call for help. And even a delay calling for help could mean a person gets further lost into more hazardous conditions, or they become injured, making a rescue more difficult and more dangerous. So that's why I actually prefer trying to prevent the search and rescue in the first place through enforcement of current laws and education. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have signed up. Is anyone else wishing to testify?
Good morning, Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poi Poi. My name is Mel Kahele. Mr. George Paris apologized for not being here to testify in person. But, we looked at the bill, and we strongly support the intent of the bill. We believe that people coming here, or even locals, disregarding the signs and the cop pool postings that's in these locations, they should pay some kind of fee or some kind of charge for we going out there and rescuing them. Tired of the government paying for all of these fees. It's about time we make some changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to HB 1948 relating to aquatic resources, DLNR.
Good afternoon, Ryan Kanakole, DLNR. DLNR stands on its testimony offering comments. We would like to note that the proposed new section regarding subsistence fishing and gear restrictions is vague. It could mean that residents engaging in subsistence fishing may use any type of gear they choose, or it could mean that existing gear regulations continue to apply if the gear is not prohibited. The bill also does not clarify whether DLNR is authorized to adopt new regulations on the time, place, and manner of the use of certain gear types which are impacted by this bill. There's also a question about what would be considered a prohibition on the type of gear versus a prohibition on the manner of use of that type of gear. We're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Native Hawaiian Gathering Rights Association, Zoom. Okay, not present. Sierra Club of Hawaii.
Morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Wayne Tanaka with Sierra Club of Hawaii. We are in strong opposition to this bill. As someone who's fished his entire life, I can definitely say that a measure like this could be devastating for our fisheries here. There's a I think the majority of fishers are want to do the right thing. They care about the resource, but then again, there's 150,000 plus non-commercial fishers, and I don't think we can assume that everyone's going to take the kind of personal responsibility necessary to prevent the unfettered use of any kind of gear from severely impacting our resources. So just happy to answer any questions, and respectfully urge that you hold this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Kua'aina Ulu Awamo.
Aloha mai kako, Chair Ichiyama, Vice Chair Poipoi, and committee members. Before I testify for Kua, Kamale Piko from Kipo Hulo, Hana was on Zoom earlier to testify, but she had to run to another call, and she just wanted me to say that they strongly oppose and stand on their testimony. I'm Olale Momi Fisher, advocate for Kua'aina Ulu Awamo, or Kua. Kua'aina Ulu Awamo means grassroots growing through shared responsibility, and our abbreviation, Kua, means backbone in Olelo, Hawaii. We serve as a support organization for a large network statewide, which includes hundreds of Malama Aina practitioners from all walks of life and many subsistence Wai'a or fishers. Kua and our network share a vision of Aina Momona, where Hawaii will once again thrive and with abundant biocultural resources for all to care for and enjoy. We stand on our testimony in strong opposition for this measure that goes directly against achieving Aina Momona and ensuring a sustainable and healthy ocean for future generations. We support the definition of subsistence, which is already defined under HRS 188-22.6 for CBSFAs, but we do not agree with allowing for no gear restrictions for anyone that lives in Hawaii for 1 year and claims to be a true subsistence fisher. This measure is far too broad and has not been vetted by DAR or anyone from Kua. Mahalo nui for considering our testimony. Aloha aina kako.
Thank you. Next we have For the Fishes. Okay, Kipahulu Ohana, but they had to leave. We have Keomailani Hirata on Zoom.
Aloha aina kako, Keomailani Hanapi Hirata, calling in from Molokai. Mahalo for allowing me to testify on HB 1948. I am testifying as a Kikyo Kaina Molokai, also a cultural practitioner, a Kuleana landowner, that our lands has been in our family since time immemorial, which comes from Wakahiko. With that comes Kuleana. I am testifying in strong opposition of this bill, 1948, HB 1948. Capitalism is not part of our culture for us as Maori people. When you think about stuff, this is like subsistence versus commercial fishing. And there's really, it borders on a really fine line. I can go into numerous things wrong with this bill. One of the biggest things is there's not enough enforcement either to make sure any of this is properly, I don't know. Anyway, so mahalo for allowing me to testify. I could go on, but I'm not going to. But mahalo.
Thank you. We have Nick Croft in person.
Aloha, and thank you for having me today. I support this bill via my written testimony. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Tadashi Muratake. Oh, yeah.
Hello, good morning. My name is Tadashi Muratake from the island of Kauai, and I support this bill as a as a born and raised fisherman. It's hard enough. I don't know how many of you guys are actual fishermen, but it's really hard with the restrictions that they keep coming up with for catch fish, and more restrictions placed upon us will just make it that much more difficult. All right, thank you. Aloha.
Thank you. Jose San Austin Jr. Okay. Maybe I can come back. Should I go through the other two? Well, Jose. Oh, okay.
Good morning, guys. My name is Jose San Augustine Jr. I'm from the island of Kauai, and I do support this bill due to the fact that I am a hunter-gatherer, and I feel that it would somewhat help me out in this process. So I thank you guys for your guys' time today. Okay? Aloha.
Aloha. Carly Powell. Maybe outside. And Jesse Croft is after Carly Powell.
Anyone else in the room who wants to testify?
Oh, yes. Is there anyone else in the room that wants to testify? Okay. Okay. Jesse, you can come up and testify. Thank you.
Aloha. My name is Jessie Croft, and I support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else in the room?
Clayton Kubo, Waimea, Kauai. How can I even start right now? The intent of this measure was not to resurrect anything that is restricted already. Okay. So on. Yeah, we did not discuss this in a way that we're trying to resurrect dynamite fishing, chlorine fishing. No. Whatever is restricted is restricted. From here on out, we're trying to preserve the forms of gathering that we still have, because there is millions of dollars attacking fishers. Millions. Holomua Marine 30 by 30, almost $9 million was for that project, I would say. Yeah. $9 million. How can a local fisherman, local gatherer, even compete with something like that? We cannot. That's why we decided to at least have discussions on how to protect the forms of gathering that we still have. Already, nonprofits trying to ban, already even get one bill even, banning night spearing of uhu. You know, it's like, when is it gonna end? All we do is we gather for food. This is for subsistence, for subsidize what we can at least gather. Thank you guys for your guys' time, and please consider subsistence. It's not about dynamite. It's not about chlorine fishing. That is all done already. Mahalo nui. Again, Clayton Kubo Waimea Kauai.
Thank you. We'll look for Carly Powell again. Okay, anybody else in the room wishing to testify? Oh, okay.
Hi, aloha. My name is Nathaniel Fisher. I come from Kauai. I support the intent of this bill to ensure that subsistence fishermen can fish. Simple. Thank you. Mahalo.
Thank you. We'll look for Native Hawaiian Gathering Rights Association on Zoom.
Aloha.
Okay.
Aloha, Rep Poi Poi. Aloha, Rep
You can hold them. We're
Ichiyama.
going to take this one. Aloha, go ahead, please.
Hi. Yes, we support this bill very strongly. And again, what Mr. Kubo has stated, you know, there is just a constant attack on our ability to catch food for our families. You know, we reside on Molokai. Fishing is very important to the sustainability of our families here, and as well as hunting. Raising my children, even while being in a fire department, that really helped me sustain and supplement what I wasn't able to pick up on my paycheck. And with all of the attacks, the current attacks on fishermen, is these people, they believe that if they stop people from fishing, it's gonna save the environment. It's really ridiculous if you think about it. But we are in support of other alternatives like artificial reef to increase biomass in other areas, and things need to be considered, like maybe you gotta ban tourism, because it's already proven that and I'm not supporting that, but I'm just throwing it out there because it's already scientifically proven that the presence of people in the ocean will deter fish in those areas. So what is the expected outcome? Yeah. Mahalo. I'll be present for any questions. Aloha.
Thank you. Carly Powell.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I support Bill HB 1948. I'm an avid fisherman and I feed myself and my family from fishing. Putting restrictions on the equipment would prevent us from using what we have to provide for our families and our community. I try and avoid buying meat from the grocery stores, which raised with toxins and shipped over here to the remote islands, creating a bigger carbon footprint. Allowing us to use the equipment necessary provides us not only with healthy food, but a sustainable resource. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all we have signed up. Is anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, members, questions? Yep, Sunny.
For the DLNR.
Aloha, Brian Nielsen, Administrator for Division of Aquatic Resources.
Morning, thank you for being here today. I've been trying to follow what's been happening on Lahaina, regarding the essentially fishing protest, the way people have been using subsistence fishing to protest the government, have conversations about housing, other things. Has anybody been cited for anything having to, like any violation of rule or law in Lahaina as during this months-long protest?
Yeah, I'm probably not the best person to address this question. I'm not aware of any citations. I don't know if Deputy can address it either. My understanding is that it's more of an issue about housing and the outcome of Lahaina rather than a fishing issue. That's just
using fishing to kind of sort of establish themselves on the beach. Yeah,
and again, I'm not super familiar with this protest, but I think the fishing aspect is just using the state law that allows for people that are fishing to be able to use our nearshore waters, anytime as long as they're fishing. But I don't have direct knowledge of that issue. Yeah.
If you want the figures, if there are any, I'm not aware of citations, but we can get that from DoCare.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Is it a follow-up? Okay. Brett Morikawa.
Oh, okay.
You can follow up.
Okay. Sorry, I haven't read the law thoroughly. Were this to be enacted, would this implicate other forms of gathering on the seashore? I'm not sure how broadly defined fishing is.
Yeah, it would affect any type of regulated species. So anything that has a size limit, a bag limit, a seasonal restriction would, from our interpretation, would be affected by this law.
Sea cucumbers, everything.
Yes, as long as they've got some type of rule associated with them. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Rep Morikawa.
But sorry, but they still have to abide by bag limits, don't they? This is only regarding gear or the type of fishing.
It's my interpretation it would also apply to bag limits. Is that your understanding as well? Yes.
Specifically, checking on page 3, lines 6 through 10, it appears that there is it applies to bag limits as well.
Okay. I have a second clarifying question, because some of these people are opposed to it because they feel like you can use explosive chemicals, poisons, and intoxicants also to do fishing.
I think we added that in our testimony as examples of the vagueness of this bill could potentially open loopholes that any kind of person that fishes wouldn't want to support dynamite fishing or chlorine bleach, but it would.
I think I get that. I think these people are looking for the right to fish for food for the table, and I don't think the intent was to include these things. So is there a way that you can suggest language that could tighten that up a little bit, but at least allow these people to fish, to catch the fish for food?
Yeah, we appreciate subsistence fishing, and also appreciate that there isn't definitions of subsistence fishing that set it apart from other forms of recreational fishing in our rules, and it is a challenge. But I think it would take considerable work to amend this bill into a way that doesn't open up many loopholes that would allow overharvest or loopholes for fishing that aren't in line with conservation of our species. So I think it would take maybe there's some amendments, but I think it would take considerable work. There are states like Alaska that do have special regulations for subsistence fishing, but if you look at those regulations, it's not a free-for-all. There's a subsistence license, there's bag limits, there's size limits, there's seasonal restrictions. So it is possible, but it doesn't mean you can just go out and take anything you want under the guidance of subsistence.
I doubt that that's the intention that these local fishermen have.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's not right that we penalize them because they maybe speared a female uhu or whatever might be in your rules, which seems to be kind of unreasonable. So I don't know, how is your enforcement on something like that? If they how do you even tell if it's a female or a male?
So
I wouldn't know. I just would spear it because it's there.
So the island of Maui does have a restriction against the take of blue uhus. Those are the terminal phase uhu, but other than that, there's not a restriction against the taking of female uhu. And in all of our fishing regulations, we try to work really closely with subsistence fishers before they go to the board to make sure that these rules that we're proposing are reasonable and in line with subsistence fishing practices. So it's not just a knee-jerk reaction where we take these things to rule. There's a lot of consultation and amendments and changes that happen based on that feedback we receive.
So if this bill doesn't make it, what would you do to help these fishermen?
we're willing to work with fishers, hear what the issues are. You know, 2 of the testifiers today sit on our fishers working group, so we hear from them a lot, but we are committed to work with these fishers, hear what the issues are, and start looking at tools that we could address their issues that, you know, don't open up loopholes for over harvest or other unintended consequences.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the rules that are starting to penalize a lot of fishermen. I mean, there are even kids who go fishing and they wouldn't know what the rules are, and yet they may be penalized because they accidentally caught something that shouldn't have been caught. So just a comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Members, any more questions? Chair?
Actually, sorry, Administrator Nielsen, sorry. Make you come back up. I understand the concerns about the broadness and vagueness of the proposed language, even assuming that we could clarify that. What I'm also concerned about is implementation, because how do you tell if someone is subsistence fishing versus recreational fishing? How do you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. We have a lot of challenges now with differentiating commercial versus non-commercial fishing, since, you know, some commercial fishers will go out and just catch enough for cost recovery. So there's already a gray area between commercial and non-commercial. Adding a subsistence layer in there would be another challenge of trying to separate those out. Not impossible, but it would just take considerable work to try to figure something like that out, and look at other states like Alaska that have defined subsistence and have special regulations around subsistence fishing.
And how would you know if someone has lived here for a year or more?
That's a good question. I know DOFA's hunting license, they, you know, when you sign up for a license, they do require that, I think, residency for a year, but we don't have a fishing license. So I don't know if that's something that DoCare would have to look at their license records to ensure, you know, residency in the state for a year or more. But yeah, another challenge.
Right. I mean, we have kids who go to college and they may claim residency in another state for the purpose of tuition, but they've lived here their whole lives. Right? And does that create a gray area?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a Fishers Working Group meeting coming up?
There's one this Friday, so you're welcome to attend.
Thank you.
I think you're on the email list.
Thank you very much. And does a Fishers Working Group discuss these kinds of issues?
Absolutely. Yeah, we the fishers themselves set the agendas for the meeting. So whatever the fishers want to talk about, that's what the agenda is, and there is commonly discussions about rules and regulations or other, you know, fishing related issues on the agenda.
And just going back to the bill for a moment, how would you interpret, because the testimony has brought up concerns, how would you interpret this bill to apply to marine managed areas like a CBSFA, community-based subsistence fishing area, or other types of MMAs?
Yeah, from my interpretation, it would essentially allow any subsistence fisher, which is a pretty broad definition, to be able to fish in those areas and not be restricted to those, you know, whatever rules are associated with that marine managed area.
What about like Hanama Bay?
That would be my interpretation. The same would be for Hanama Bay.
Under this proposed draft,
Yeah.
anyone could walk into Hanama Bay with
would you
gear.
I would agree. The bill as written would probably override those restrictions.
Okay, thank you very much. And any other questions? Question for Mr. Kubo? Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Kubo, and I think you clarified some of the intent behind the bill. I think you also heard the way the bill could be interpreted now to apply to marine managed areas. What are your thoughts around
I thought
whether or not?
you know, when we was discussing this whole ordeal, I clearly remember that we had discussed all CBSFAs, MMAs, I even talked to somebody with on CBSA, but you know what, I'm not gonna mention names, okay? That whatever is in the rules is in the rules. I don't like touch nothing of that. I don't think Godfrey would like to touch anything of that either. It's just we are being like our backs is more like pretty soon going against the wall. That they come in after our rights to fish, to gather. It's like I said, when is it going to end? Really, the proof is in the pudding. Get one bill that says to ban spear fishing of night fishing of uhu. So, how much more bills going to be coming out? You know, how much more rules that they are going to be putting out because of, I'm going to fly some, Nature Conservancy, okay? For the fishes. We're talking about food. This is about food, okay? We have no intent of bringing back any of the mentioned in my testimony, nothing like that. It's just, we just need to look at it from this angle. How much more bills and how much more conversations going to get with DLNR and DOR that going to bring forward banning, and more banning. Because they already get talks of banning. MMA, Moana Lua Bay. Okay, how much more will be coming out? All we like do is, for me, all I do is, I want to go to the ocean and go gather for food. This is not about making money, this is about food. Thank you very much, D. Yeah. You understand, right? Okay, right on. Is there any more questions? You know, it's about food, reps. It's about food. Yeah.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, I have one question for the department, for Brian. Or the department. Just to clarify just one part of the language, are the fisheries or fish considered a renewable resource? It's just my understanding of renewable resources like sunlight, wind energy, things like that. So I'm just curious how the department interprets that.
Yeah, I guess I've never thought of fisheries as a renewable resource, but maybe it's just kind of terminology, but we do manage for sustainability. So yeah, I guess it's a renewable food resource as long as it's managed effectively. You know, those aquatic resources, those fisheries can feed this generation and the next generation, but that does require management, Malka to Mackay management, to ensure that renewable resource is there for the next generation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, recess for decision making.
Good morning. We are reconvening the House Committee on Water and Land for our 9 a.m. agenda for decision-making purposes. Thank you very much, members, and also to all the testifiers. First up, we have House Bill 1627 relating to public school land transfer. The recommendation is going to be to defect the date to the year 3000. This is a procedural move. It's not meant to create any question that we want this bill to take effect 1,000 years later. It just means that it needs to go to conference committee. So defect the date to the year 3000. Passing out a House Draft 1. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Okay, voting on HB 1627 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Chun. Representative Ganadin.
Aye.
Representative Hashem.
Aye.
Representative Mizuno.
Aye.
Representative Morikawa.
Aye.
Representative Takayama.
Aye.
Representative Souza.
Aye.
Okay, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much, members. Next, House Bill 1918 relating to historic preservation. Recommendation is going to be to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000, blank out the dollar amounts, put them into the committee report, and we're also going to put into the committee report the proposed amendment from the Historic Hawaii Foundation about how this can be used, like the federal tax credit. But it's a little complicated, so I'm going to leave it up to the Finance Committee to decide. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. Vice Chair.
Okay, voting on House Bill 1918 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, noting all members as present. Chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, House Bill 1901 relating to historic preservation. I think this bill is important discussion about the state buildings that we have. And I recognize the testimony from DLNR that we have not yet done a survey of our state buildings to see whether or not they should be designated. So we're going to add that as a new section to the bill to require that a statewide survey of all buildings will be done in 5 years. We're going to add a blank appropriation for this, and for discussion purposes, it'll be put under the Department of Accounting and General Services. But like I said, this bill is still a work in progress and has a long way to go. We're also going to defect to the year 3000. And that's it. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair. House Draft 1.
Voting on House Bill 1901 with amendments. Noting all members as present. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, Chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, House Bill 1928 relating to historic preservation. Recommendation is going to be to defer this measure. Next, House Bill 1529 relating to burial councils. Defer to Vice Chair Poipoi.
Okay, thank you. For HB 1529, the recommendation is to defect the date to the year 3000 and amend to add clarifying language regarding the intent of the length of holdover in relation to the term period. Yeah, that's the recommendation. Are there any questions? Okay, I will take the vote. Voting on House Bill 1529 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations?
Reservations. Okay. Can I have comments too? I appreciate the fact that we are going to define the term of the holdover member. I think that's important. I just have reservations with just generally how things are done as far as boards and commissions. I think that there's so many vacancies right now, and although this is a really great bill and the sentiment is good, I think that we have a larger issue of filling vacancies across the board with boards and commissions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. If you have comments on a bill, please make them when we ask if there are any questions on the decision making, and then during voting, we'll just go ahead and take the vote. So if you have comments, please feel free to make them when we ask if there are any questions or comments. Okay, next, House Bill 1544, relating to state water code penalties. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000, and then also blanking the fine amount. Members, any questions, comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair.
Voting on HB 1544. Are there any noes or with amendments? Are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, House Bill 1900 relating to hydrologic data collection. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to 3000 and blanking the dollar amounts. Members, any questions, comments? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1900 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Okay, next, House Bill 1781 relating to the Hawaii Community Development Authority. We're going to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to 3000. We're also going to take the first amendment from the HCDA testimony. Page 5, lines 5 through 6 clarify that notwithstanding any law to the contrary, including 206E-16. And then on page 9, line 11, we're going to delete the phrase pursuant to subsection B to clarify that. Members, any questions, comments? Okay, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on HB 1781 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, we're moving to House Bill 2724, again relating to the Hawaii Community Development Authority. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting to the year 3000. Page 5, lines 16 to 17, same amendment as the last bill to add the notwithstanding any law to the contrary, including 206E-16. And then page 8, line 15 through 16, we're going to delete the phrase by the nominating authority specified in this subsection. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on HB 2724 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, House Bill 1902 relating to emergency management. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defect the date to the year 3000, and technical non-substantive amendments. Any questions, comments?
Voting on HB 1902 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, House Bill 1835 relating to distribution management. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000. Questions, comments? Vice Chair.
Voting on HB 1835 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, House Bill 1930 relating to the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defect to the year 3000, blank the dollar amount, and put into the committee report. Members, any questions, comments? Vice Chair.
Voting on HB 1930 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, House Bill 2611 relating to administrative fees. Recommendations to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000. And we're going to note in the committee report for the Judiciary Committee to consider whether or not the setting of or the changing of these fees should be done through Chapter 91 or through the Board of Land and Natural Resources. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on HB 2611 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, Chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, House Bill 1922 relating to wildlife. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000. Any questions, comments? Vice Chair.
Voting on HB 1922 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, Chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Okay, next, House Bill 2473 relating to conservation mitigation programs. I think it's another bill that's work in progress, but still has a long way to go, so we have some time. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000. We're also going to adopt the Department of Land and Natural Resource amendments as contained in their testimony. We also have tech amendments. And then on page 5, line 8, we're going to clarify that conservation banks shall be established and operated under the contract. Members, any questions, comments? Okay, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Okay, voting on HB 2473 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members. Turn the next bill, 1592, to Vice Chair Poipoi.
Okay, so for 1592, recommendation is to pass the House Draft 1. We're going to blank the amount and add it to the committee report, defect the date to year 3000, and add the DLNR's suggested comments in their testimony into the committee report regarding taking effect upon approval. And that's the recommendation. I'll take the vote. Oh, any questions or comments? Okay. Voting on House Bill 1592. Any noes or reservations? Seeing none, recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. House Bill 1581 relating to wildfire prevention. Recommendation is to defect the date to the year 3000. Passing out a House Draft 1. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1581 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. House Bill 1841 relating to the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Recommendation is to pass this out House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000. We're also going to put the dollar amounts into the committee report. Members, any questions, comments? Okay, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on HB 1841 with amendments. Any noes or reservations? Seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Okay, next, House Bill 2174 relating to search and rescue. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defect the date to the year 3000, and also take the amendment proposed by the Department of Law Enforcement as contained in their testimony. Any questions?
Comments?
Yep.
I just have I'm in full support of this measure. I think that the issue is how much is the fee going to be and how we execute it in that sense. So it would be really hard to fully support the measure, even though my vote will be yes, without determining what that fee actually is at the present moment. And also I have an issue with just Section 3B as a result of that, because I think that perhaps the cost could be a percentage of the rescue cost instead of just a flat fee. Thank you.
Oh, points are well taken. Thank you, Rep. Souza. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, Rep. Gagnon.
Thank you, Chair. Since I've been in the legislature, I think I've heard probably about 7 versions of these. I'm trying to count, where we're trying to get some sort of reimbursement for people who violate existing law. I'll be voting with reservations.
Thank you, Rep. Gagnon. Okay, any other comments, questions? Vice Chair.
Voting on HB 2174, noting reservations from Representative Ganadin. Are there any other noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Okay, members, last bill on the agenda, House Bill 1948 relating to aquatic resources. I think we had a very robust discussion on this today. I think the bill is drafted, though, currently needs some work. I note this is a double, so we have some time, and I would encourage the Fishers Working Group to take it up, hopefully in a future meeting for further discussion. And I'm seeing nods, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. With that, members, we are adjourned. Thank you.